Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. It is 8:44. That means it is not 8:30 here locally, which means we are getting a very late start, and I apologize right up front, but I had nothing to do with it. Nothing I could do. Push the stream button like I do every morning. 275 episodes deep now. And what happened? But the screens froze. The mouse became inoperable. And then everything flashed at me with purple screens for no particular reason. And then it all shut down. So maybe I've overloaded my PC. Or maybe whatever it is that just happens here. So we just deal with it. I am quite calm, all things considered. This stuff used to rattle me. No joke. I used to have tech issues sometimes that didn't make any sense. They were completely illogical. They would happen out of nowhere. And I would just be so frustrated. Like, what do I do? I owe better than this. And it's reminded me something really important. I'm not in charge here, folks. Neither are you, turns out. I've got a great video clip that's going to be a reminder of that for all of us. Because it's been a couple of pretty wild years in this country. I think more than normal. I think a lot of people get it. And this morning, it was just a little reminder for me to have some peace in my lack of ability to control the universe and the world the way I would like it to be. It's not my plan. So I said a little prayer, not my will, but thy will be done. And I'm not going to get stressed out about things that I can't handle, that I can't run. I am part of the show, as are you, but it's not really my show. At the end of the day, my name may be on it, but there's a lot more at play here. So we're going to get into all those things. I've got a story about, I think, classic hypocrisy. One of them is, what do you even call this guy? Alejandro Mayorkas was the Secretary of Homeland Security under Biden. And we used to see him and his smiling bald face while we were waiting to do check-in at the airport. Yet another thing that you have almost no control over. There was this funny little story I said. I was at the airport and I'm trying to enjoy myself. Do any of you actually enjoy yourself at the airport, you sickos? If you do, nobody enjoys their time at the airport. The airport is a waiting station between where you're going and where you've been. It's just a jump off point. Maybe the really, truly in touch with their mindfulness can enjoy being at the airport, but not very many of us do. In any case, Alejandro Mayorkas used to have his little spiels. Kristi Noem, Border Barbie, has a spiel that is not being played. And it's a reminder of the resistance and the posture, and we've got a No Kings rally coming up on Saturday that I'm kind of excited about, reminding us that not everybody is on the same page here. We're getting propaganda from the left, propaganda from the right, and I will continue to be the person, if I have the ability, to try to see things as clearly as possible, to have the most fair take that I'm able, with all the biases that I will acknowledge that I have. At the end of the day, if you agree 100% with any position, you're probably not thinking critically all the way through it. So I've got some propaganda, all these, and all that ties into what I was talking about yesterday, which is being the identified patient, being the black sheep. The black sheep is almost always somebody who bucks the norms, the status quo, the roles that we want everyone to fit into. If you fight with those roles, if you push back against them, if you reject them based on your critical thinking and saying, hey, couldn't we do this better? Those people throughout all of history, whether it be at the family level, whether it be at the state or the federal government level or nation or the world, if you are a person who rejects the premises of the world, as Jesus Christ did and said that all the things that you think are true and right are actually not. You're in good company, it turns out. Because that's kind of what we're called to do. We're not going to get there. Not as human beings. We already had one person pulled off, and that's it. That's the only one. So anyway, that's where we're going to go. Is that heavy enough? Are we going to have some fun today? Yes, because the show already crashed once. It can't get any stranger than that. Let's talk about my friends over at My Patriot Supply. You know what you can avoid? You can at least prepare yourself for the worst. And the worst being like probably freezing to death in the winter. That might be kind of terrible. Cold weather will be here before you know it. And I realized the other day that when the power goes out, it gets really cold. I actually had a HVAC system fail on me when I lived in Virginia, and I slept in the cold, and I sent my wife and my new daughter up to go stay with my in-laws, and it was like in the 20s in my house. They came in and put hardwood floors in. It was brutal on me and the guys putting it in. When the power goes out, it can get really bad. There's no way to send my family off from where we are right now. So if you don't want to die in the freezing cold, if you want to just actually prepare yourself for all possibilities, which is something that's really good, you guys can check out the Vesta off-grid space heater. I actually just looked at it on My Patriot Supply. It's super cool looking. They sell standalone for $130, but they also have this bundle that's going on where you actually can get that with a bunch of other things like free, warming devices and winter gear, and then you pay for like 3 months of emergency food, all of which is really useful stuff to you. Space heaters don't use electricity. That's pretty awesome because, again, if the electricity goes out, what's it going to do? If you want to get canned heat, if you want a safe indoor fuel, if you want something that will cook and keep you warm, check out my buddies over at mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. The link is just below you in the show description. And either way you look at it, mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle. It's the Vesta, that heat system, a bunch of other free gifts when you get the winter prep special. Like I said, I just looked at it there. I've got almost everything in there except the canned heat solution. So I think that's probably my next order up there. If you guys have not considered what would happen if the power went out and you just needed to make it through a couple of days, check out mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. Again, mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle. All right, let's get into today. Let's start it. We're starting late. We're getting it done. It's going to happen. Here we go. So all of my tabs with all the stories that I wanted to cover disappeared, so I had to reopen them. Hopefully they're going to be mostly in order. I think this is a great reminder that you're not in charge, that we're not in charge. Some people tend to protest against that. They don't get it. So this story is quite interesting to me. This has been a little hubbub or a little ruckus, this little virtue signal that's been going on across social media and in the traditional media. Pete Hegseth announced something that is really, really reasonable about access for the press in the Pentagon. It would never occur to me that a member of the media, let's say that's what I do right now, right? So I'm media. I don't know that I'm a journalist per se, although I have some things that I do that are journalistic, but I am a member of the media. And it would never occur to me that I could simply drive up to the Pentagon, where I've been with badge access, and I've gone through the gates there, and I've gone in for meetings that were classified up to and including secret. I don't think we ever did any top secret work there, but I've been in there. I've answered phones at the Pentagon, by the way. That was one of my funnier moments. Complete little aside here that I'll share with you guys. I sat there in this meeting talking about counterintelligence and the potential for some of the force to be targeted. So I'm sitting there at the head of this table. I think I was the only FBI guy there. I'm with Pentagon Force Protection and their counterintelligence unit, a couple of people from DIA and some other randos that are around there, and then some members of active duty military. And I'm sitting at this table and the phone rings. So I just picked it up and I just go, Pentagon, this is Seraphin FBI. How can I direct your call or something like that? And they were asking for some colonel at the end of it. And I was like, please hold the line. And they're like, who are you? I was like, I don't know. Just trying to have a good time here because I don't know what the hell I'm doing in this building. I would never consider the idea that I was sitting in that building if I was a member of the media like I am today and not a credentialed, blue-badged FBI agent. I cannot fathom just driving up there and being like, hey, I just want to roam around and see what I can find out in the Pentagon building. Can I just do that, please? Apparently, that's what they've been doing for years. What the hell? So Pete Hegseth tweets this out. This is from yesterday. Pentagon access is a privilege, and it's not a right. And so here at the Department of War, press credentialing for dummies is going to look like this. You are no longer able to roam free in the building. Press must wear a visible badge. credentials press is no longer permitted to solicit criminal acts. That would be leaking information that is sensitive or dangerous to national security. That's it. The Pentagon now has some sane rules, just like every other United States military installation. I'm pretty sure that's true. I've been on, I don't know, maybe a dozen domestic military installations. I've never seen free roaming press. I have never been approached by a member of the press that came up and just was like trying to get information about what kind of stuff I was doing. Hey, you're doing some training that's classified up to secret here. Can you tell us like what some of that stuff might be? How might the Chinese compromise it? What are the most dangerous bad ideas that you guys have? What the hell are you talking about? It's so goofy. So there's this story. This is being run by SAN.com. I don't think it's really relevant where that's from, per se. The headline is the key. Media outlets are refusing the Pentagon press policy, and they must either sign on to it or surrender their press badges. And a bunch of them have decided to virtue signal that they are going to dump the badges. Okay, I guess. That's a funny little flex, is it not? That's when you start thinking that you have much more control over the world than you really do. Maybe they need a little lesson in humility like we had this morning on the Kyle Seraphin show, where like everything's not going to work out the way you hope. It really isn't. The media policy, here's what it looks like. This is the New York Times. Richard Stevenson, the Washington bureau chief, has stated the following. Journalists from the New York Times will not sign the Pentagon's revised press pass policy, which threatens to punish them for ordinary news gathering protected by the First Amendment. Since the policy was first announced, we've expressed concerns that it constrains how journalists can report on the U.S. military, which is funded by nearly $1 trillion in taxpayer dollars annually. They really did say dollars twice, by the way. The public has a right to know how the government and military are operating. The Times is dedicated to pursuing the public interest through deep, fair reporting and unwavering pursuit of the facts. They don't have an Oxford comma in there either. So I am already upset with this nonsense, you bureau chief who says dollars twice and missed a comma that I think is necessary. Okay, great. So go gather the news. You don't have to do it in the Pentagon. That's not the only place where things come from. Leaking and trying to solicit people violating their NDAs while they work for the government. That's not normal news gathering information. What we're trying to see here is a posture of resistance. And there's no doubt about it that that is what the news media would like. Here's the Atlantic. They're so brave. The Atlantic's journalists will not sign the Pentagon press policy. We fundamentally oppose the restrictions that the Trump administration is imposing on journalists. They should capitalize journalists. They think that they're priests, don't they? Who are reporting on matters of defense and national security. Well, that should actually let you know that there's a lot of sensitivity around defense and national security. Aren't you the same people that lambasted this exact man, the Secretary of War? Didn't you lambast him about his failure for OPSEC? And then he decides to kind of cramp down on some of the OPSEC problems, and you're now very pissed off about it? We'll continue. The requirements violate our First Amendment rights and the rights of Americans who seek to know how taxpayer-funded military resources and personnel are being deployed. We will continue to cover matters of defense and war and national security independently and fairly. Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief. I think the owner of The Atlantic was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. Isn't that true? Didn't they like pose for like a bikini shot together? Okay. So that's fun. What about else? Who else wants to weigh in? Oh, maybe the Washington Post would like to weigh in on this one. Journalists from the Washington Post will not be signing the Pentagon's new press access policy. The proposed restrictions undercut the First Amendment protections by placing unnecessary constraints. How do you know it's necessary? Just asking. On gathering and publishing information that we want to get that will leak and embarrass the people that we want to embarrass. I added that part. We will continue to vigorously and fairly report the policies and positions of the Pentagon and officials across the government. Well, it sounds like you're going to do it from not inside the Pentagon. That seems totally reasonable to me. Bummer. You don't get access if you don't play by the rules, which in this case actually seem really reasonable. You can't freely roam around in a building that has all kinds of sensitive information. That sounds like a pretty easy move. You must wear a visible press badge. That's a big problem for you. And you're no longer able to solicit things that are referred to as criminal acts. Criminality? You have a problem with that? Tell me about this crazy nonsense. I mean, we just live in an unserious time with unserious people. And maybe that's why this lady feels this way. This is a little clip that I found. I listened to it this morning. I have a bunch of thoughts about it. I don't think she's unique. I actually do think this represents a lot more people than makes sense. And I had a conversation offline with David Free. Is that his name? He's the Viva Frey podcast host. We were having this conversation the other day, and you guys will correct me on the pronunciation, I'm sure of it. And I said, one of the upsides of being a grown-up, one of the best things about being older than like prominent internet access is that we know a little bit more about what's real. If you're over the age of, let's call it, 35, that's probably a good cutoff. If you're over the age of 35, then you realize that people online are not necessarily real. They're not probably actually in reality your friends. How do you know? Because they won't show up and help you move. They're not going to, pop in and help you dig a ditch because you had some sort of a water main leak. It's just, they're not. People who are too young to remember that don't realize that the internet is not 100% real and that everything that happens there is not real. And that makes you susceptible to all kinds of chaotic things. He and I were talking about the situation with Charlie Kirk and the Discord server and someone being motivated by like online friends, which the FBI director was talking about the other day, these online confidential human sources. You're more likely to do something really dumb and dangerous from a non-real person. And when I'm talking about that, I'm going back to that story we've talked about with Steve Baker about the online SIM card issues. That SIM server farms, those things can be used to run AI profiles that are completely fake, not real, non-human interaction that can actually talk people who think that the internet is real all the time into doing some really dangerous things. And they have unlimited amount of patience because it's based on a program and it's not a human being. Do you know how scary that is? I think that's where this lady's frustration comes from because her age bracket looks like she's probably under 35. I can't confirm it, but I think that. I want you to listen to this and tell me how many people in our lives are like this.
I'm just trying to check in really quick. We're all exhausted, right? And we're just pretending that we're not. Not like it's like been a bad week. It's been a couple of years, bro. Like I am at the point that I don't know what to do anymore. I used to have insomnia. I sleep now and I still feel like shit. I used to eat fast food every day. I cook at home now and I still feel like shit. I take vitamins and I drink water like it's a sport, and then I'm still thirsty and then I pee like it's my job. I journal and I meditate and I'm trying so hard to heal this like inner child, but I still feel like a broken adult. Maybe it's probably because my job is online. I live online. I never feel caught up. I try to stay informed. I don't want to be that person that's like ignorant to the things going on outside, but it is wearing me down. I know it's wearing you guys down too, but like it shouldn't all just be in one place. I'll scroll and it's a dance video, and I'll scroll and it's somebody dying, and I'll scroll and it's a politics scandal. I'll scroll and then it's a meme. I don't want to be on my phone anymore, so then I have to go outside. I try to touch grass. I go to hug my tree. I got this watch to track my steps, make sure I'm doing it all. I don't even want to go outside. I have a fridge full of food. I don't want to eat anymore. Like, there's these tools that they promised us to give us more time, but it just feels like we have less. And like I say, I want to be connected, and then I'll cancel plans because leaving the house feels like a whole mission. And then like I work from home, which means I live at work, and my therapy is on Zoom, and my friends are on Discord, and my girlfriend is only on FaceTime. Like I can go weeks without seeing her and getting a hug. Like they call this burnout, but I don't know. Is burnout supposed to like last this long? It's been a long time. Like there was a time where I would use caffeine to wake up and the melatonin to sleep and therapy to process, and I never felt stable. So I got rid of the caffeine. I got rid of the melatonin. I even like quit therapy for a little bit, and it still didn't help. Like when I try to sit in silence, my brain screams. So I hide on screens. I'll watch shows and live streams and podcasts. I'll try to make my own content here. I've never been more entertained, and at the same time, I've never been more bored. We have endless options, and somehow I still feel trapped. And I keep asking myself, like, is this it? It's just exhaustion and self-improvement and scrolling with nothing to show for it. Everybody keeps saying, like, oh, it'll get better, it'll get better. Even I've said it in videos, like, it'll get better, I promise. This doesn't feel like it's a temporary thing, though. This doesn't feel like it's fixable. This just feels like it's my life now. And I'm sorry for saying the quiet part out loud. What am I supposed to do?
I see our chat right now is poking some fun at this lady. And That's really hard to listen to. That's a real person. I think that is a really frenetic action. That is a normal young person right now who has been sold a complete lie by our society that you can control all of this, that you get to decide what your outcome is going to be, and that you personally can go out there and find the solution. You can meditate, you can go to therapy, you can go out and do yoga, you can hug a tree. She did say that. That's cute and funny. She mentions that she has a girlfriend. I think that means that she's a lesbian. That's what I took that to mean. That she can have an interaction. But what is she saying? She's saying she's bombarded by things online, that she thinks that Discord is real. She can't sit still because her brain is screaming. There's a couple things that will absolutely change your life that this lady is leading. And I don't think that this is a one-off. And I do not want to look at this woman and scorn her. I feel tremendous pity for her. There's two things that people did historically. My dad calls it finding the quiet little voice. How many of you in the chat out here are saying the compassionate thing? That this woman needed Jesus. How much does our society need that right now? A surrender to the idea that you're not in charge. Just like I found out this morning. I had a show plan. I had a timeline. I thought at 0830 I could push the live button and make it happen. And instead what happened is everything shut down. So rather than have a meltdown or go get another tattoo, that woman had a lot of tattoos. For those of you who are listening, if you're not watching over on Spotify, which you probably should do on the audio replay, because at least you can flip it on every once in a while and see these videos. So much anxiety, so much stress. How can you not have pity for that person? She's a person that doesn't know the answer, even though the answer has always been out there. My wife was someone like that in a lot of ways, and certainly not as frenetic and certainly much more and she would have never made a video because she would have never called attention to herself. But therapy, acupuncture, looking for the solution, eating correctly, milling her own foods, right? All the things. She's saying all the right stuff. And almost all of those things are addressing a symptom, and not one of them is addressing the root cause. What is God's plan for you? And are you living it? You want to know the first way to make your life complete? Stop making it about yourself. Isn't that easy? Do kids know that? Does that young woman know that? Is someone selling that to her? The first thing you do is you stop making it about yourself. You're trying to solve your own problem like you have control. I just felt so much pity watching that this morning. Maybe that's why I had peace when the stream crashed. Maybe so. Maybe I'm just getting sentimental because I've got little kids and I don't want to see them grow up in that. She needs a baby in her life, doesn't she? Do you want to know how to make it not about you? Go make it about someone else. I had someone say the other day, and this was a really interesting little comment. Someone said, I'm sick of the trope that marriage is so difficult. And I went, yeah, marriage is not difficult. Marriage is the easiest thing that happened. The hardest thing is choosing a partner. And those of you who have not found that partner, I get it. It's incredibly difficult to find that person. But once you do, then marriage makes life so much easier. It makes it all easier because it's no longer about you. And the minute you have children, it's no longer about you. Think about the amount of narcissistic tendencies that we saw in that little video, not to judge her, but to diagnose the problem. What did she do? She covered herself in ink. Why would you do that? People used to ask me, hey, how come you don't have any tattoos? You were in the military. And I'm like, yeah, I never thought of something that I needed people to understand so long that I would put it on my body permanently. And my joking answer is that, God made this temple the way that it is. I don't need to deface it. I don't put graffiti on my temple. And some of you have really important things that you've decided to commit to for your life and put on your skin. Okay, I'm not judging you for that. I'm just asking a question. How many of you would continue to do that every day? What can you do with that money that you spent on it? Probably nothing. It's the same kind of throwing money into therapies and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. I just see these people. That woman is the same woman that I see protesting ICE facilities because she's looking for a cause. That woman is the same one that ends up in her 40s screaming at some preacher on the street because he's saying abortion is bad. And she feels personally judged because she judged herself. I don't know. I just feel compassion for that person. We can't fix it with a pill, people, it turns out. And that's the one thing that I do see that makes you on the wrong side. If you think that an election was going to solve all of our problems, then you're foolish. I'm sorry, you're foolish. It's a foolish sentiment to believe that elections solve the problem. If you think that a vote somewhere or a government will come in and solve these problems, it's foolish. It's never been that. I think a lot of people were sold this bill of goods. They thought that they were going to be, she said, I've been doing all the right things. I'm sure she has, based on what she's been told. And that programming, that indoctrination, that leftist thing that says, you're perfect as you are, you just have to fix the system around you, instead of just saying you are imperfect and you will always be imperfect. So many people fall into that category, and they're so easily sold deceptive lies that if you just found the right cause, if you could just lobby against this thing that's outside of yourself, when in reality, all of that is pride. I was considering how honeypots work. This is an interesting little segue, but it's something that I was thinking about. I considered the concept of the honeypot. Why is it that men fall victim today, right now in 2025, when all the information that we have is out there? Why is it that they are able to be conned into a pretty woman, and it could happen the other way around, it could be an attractive man and get information from a woman? Why is it that that is an effective tactic for intelligence? They don't need to offer anything, by the way. They just have to be attractive and show attention to you. Why would that be effective? And it always goes back to the oldest thing in the world. It's the sin of pride. It's that we believe certain things about ourselves, and if somebody else were to just notice it, even if it's fake, bam, it's effective. Because that person appears to see the thing that you've always believed about yourself, which is pride. You guys have other words that start with a P, but that's not it. I don't think. I think the root cause is deeper. And that's why when I see this video, there was a video that went on a couple weeks ago. James O'Keefe published this deal, and the video was a heavy set, chubby, fat guy, whatever you want to call it. Like he was a middle-aged, 50-something-year-old, not in good shape, not a physical specimen man. And some 26-year-old good-looking gal wanted to sit and have dinner with him out of the blue, and he went. And he said a bunch of things that, probably made him lose his job, that were not true, because, God, just the attention. This person suddenly recognized in me what I've always thought of me. And it's pride. It's not accurate self-assessment. It's really interesting how many of these themes continue to just keep swirling around. Is all of this stuff connected to what we see that goes on in the news cycle? Yeah, of course it does. How do you think they sell the news cycle to you? How are any of us interested in it? How about the pride of, I think that I voted the correct solution into office. I believe I did that. And therefore, I must believe that everything that fill in the blank person that I voted for got it done. That's the trap for us right now. I think that's a very real trap. I'm watching some of my buddies who are big MAGA guys. And they're like, do you understand how great it is? Do you understand how amazing this thing is? He did it, man. So we're going to talk a little bit about the peace thing that was, talked about yesterday and some of the coverage of it. I think the coverage of it is more illuminating than actually what happened, in so much as it's not a permanent peace. The Middle East will always have turmoil simply because you have two of these conflicting groups that have ideologies that they're not compatible, period. It doesn't make any sense. We're seeing a fight right now, and this entire program is about the airports that are run by municipalities are not showing a federal propaganda clip by Kristi Noem. And they're acting like it's somehow okay. But all this is because we politicize things. And so if you're angry that they didn't want to play the video, if you're a conservative, wouldn't you say, well, local control is best? Maybe these people are realizing that the federal government shouldn't control your local airport. Shouldn't that actually be the answer? Or no? I'm seeing this little story about the impacts of the government shutdown. It's quite funny. There's going to be another vote tonight on whether or not they're going to open the thing up. And Republicans continue to message non-conservative principles. So when I tell you that I have no belief that the Republican Party is a conservative party, it's simply because they just don't show it to me. It's pretty funny to read it. It's quite amusing when you go out there and you look at the press coverage of it and the way that they have this easy messaging option. They just can't do it. They just won't. Government shutdown is poised to enter the third week as Congress remains in a stalemate. What to know on day 13? I mean, we've done 30 plus days of this thing. What we're seeing is that various members of the Trump administration are going out there and making sure that they pay off members of the military, whether it be the Coast Guard, whether it be DOD or DOW assets. I guess they call it DOW now. The stalemate on how to reopen the government will extend into a third week with no resolution as Democrats and Republicans continue to blame the shutdown that began on October 1st. Vice President J.D. Vance said the Democrats' posture amounts to hostage taking. Again, they have this huge opportunity to own it and say, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate any job that is not essential. We don't know why Americans pay for non-essential work, so we're not going to do it anymore. That'd be a truly conservative and radical and revolutionary thing. But we don't have that. So when we argue that there is a uniparty, when we say that they are two different wings of the same bird or bat, there's different sides of the same coin, but they all are paying for the same thing. Yeah, of course they are. The Senate returns on Tuesday. It's expected to vote on whether on a House measure. It's fallen short of the necessary 60-vote threshold 7 times. Senate Republicans have unsuccessfully sought to win more support from Democrats. And this is a massive funding still. It's still funding at Biden levels. Democrats say they won't vote to open the government unless health insurance tax credits are extended because they want to give it to illegals. And so that's the fight that we are seeing here. And I do understand why Republicans are out there framing it in that way. It does make a lot of sense. They're trying to set Democrats up for this silliness. And all of that is going to come down to this discussion about the No Kings rally. We're going to see that piece. The No Kings rally is something that is going to be happening on Saturday, and I'm looking forward to covering that. It's kind of incredible to think about. Nobody can get their hands around the solution is actually owning the problem and saying, okay, it's my fault. And this is an opportunity that we can take. What if Republicans said, yes, we are to blame for this, and we're going to do it intentionally, and we're going to use it for good. We're going to use it to eliminate huge swaths of the federal government. They won't do that. They can't do that. We're going to get into a couple of different clips of this, how I think it plays into the peace deal in Israel as well, because I think it actually does kind of like lean in there. First, we're going to read from my friends over at Patriot Coolers. You guys, I am fueling on Patriot Coolers. It is what is keeping me cool and relaxed as show malfunctions happen. PatriotCoolers.com/KYLE. Got one of the 20-ounce mugs sitting right here. This has warm coffee. I've got one with iced coffee, so we can continue to make it happen. We have the cooler on the screen. If you guys haven't checked them out, they're fantastic devices. They're as good as anything else out there when it comes to the Yeti or the other types that are doing it. But they say Patriot on the side, and they won't cancel you like a woke company. All of their stuff is very well thought out, and I literally use it almost every day. We use it every single time that we hit up a grocery store, and because we have 4 kids, we're constantly going to different types of grocery stores because there are certain items that can only be gotten at certain things. My wife, just like that lady with the tattoos, does have very specific food requirements for our family. That's her MO. And so, yeah, we're constantly using the Patriot Cooler. PatriotCooler.com, promo code Kyle, KYLE. It will save you 10%. KYLE, 10% off. $50 or more, you get free shipping, which means you'll get it on any of the big stuff for sure. Check out my friends over there. They are our longest sponsor too, so we're really appreciative of that. I want to pivot to this. Trump declared the end of the Israel-Hamas war, but the experts are seeing this as just the hard work beginning. Again, choose your coverage. You choose the amount of bias that we will see. You can't help it. They just can't help themselves in saying this stuff. They really cannot. And so I'm going to play you a thoughtful discussion. This is coming from Erin, I think her name is Molin, or Molan rather. And this is the author of a book called Son of Hamas. His name is Mohsen Hassan Youssef. He is the son of the founder of the Hamas party, and he's discussing whether or not you can actually really have a peace deal, actual lasting peace between Israel and Hamas. And this is what I've always believed, although I've never heard it in these exact words. Let's just play this real quickly and consider that the ideologies are fundamentally incompatible and that peace is not a real possibility. So this is just temporary. Of course it is, though. Anyone who's lived long enough knows that.
The peace deal, is it a peace deal, Mossab, or is this anything but?
Peace, this is a very big term. You know, they are already talking about peace. This is just, at best, I would say, a ceasefire. And according to Hamas books, this is only a truce. They cannot make peace with Jews. They cannot make peace with Israel. This is their ideology does not allow them to sign a deal with Israel. If Hamas ideology agreed to making peace with Israel, there would be peace long time ago. This is the main obstacle in front of Hamas Shura Council. It's the religion, it's the Quran, it's the Islamic ideology. So at best, Hamas can have truce with Israel for 10 to 15 years. This is what the Islamic law allows them to have with kuffar, with basically infidels, non-Muslims in a state of war. The most they could do, what Muhammad did back in the day with the Meccans, it was a truce, 15 years maximum. And they are willing to renew it, but they can never call it peace. They don't make peace with their enemies.
That's it. You can't make peace with enemies because they've been declared as such. So we've got not peace. Doesn't mean that people aren't celebrating it. And again, the people that are out there saying things, I think that the News Nation, which tries to be sort of down the middle-ish, I think that they actually have maybe the most amusing take because they bring on Bill O'Reilly on a regular basis, and he makes a pretty wild claim about this. You're seeing NBC cover it as well. NBC says the celebration of a hard-won ceasefire, I think that's the right word, pushing for lasting harmony in the Middle East. I think that's a ridiculous concept at this point. They did a hostage exchange. That's pretty much it. Isn't this interesting that they're talking about hostage exchanges while at the same time using the same language with Democrats who actually do not have any hostages? They're keeping the people in the federal government that are non-essential from working and getting paid. That seems like they're doing us a favor. We won't see it that way. Bill O'Reilly goes on News Nation, and he says as follows. He says that Trump's power because of this negotiation has increased 1,000%. I want you to understand that 1,000% is what, 10x? He's 10 times more powerful now because of this negotiation. I don't think this is true either. Again, people jump into these camps where they get hyperbolic and they get super amped up about being pro-Trump or anti-Trump, when in reality, there are things that he does decent, and I think a ceasefire is a good thing on Earth in general for people not to be at war with each other, temporarily even. Great. And maybe peace can be moved forward if they were to actually remove Hamas from being the leadership party in Gaza, which I don't think will happen. But to claim that this is so over the top saving everybody, it's really ridiculous. And these voices that go out there, they make a living basically trying to bat you around like a ping pong ball. It makes me think of that poor girl with the tattoos. She's getting this stuff. This is the stuff she's scrolling through. Hyperbolic, over the top statements, nobody taking a moment to breathe and just have context, because regular takes don't sell. I had a discussion with our former producer, Ryan Matta. God love Ryan. He sells a ton of video movement on X right now. And all of it is hyperbolic and over the top. And it doesn't have to be based in fact. And I was like, dude, what are you claiming? And he was like, oh, I'm just shitposting. When the whole world is doing that, and in mainstream media, when the New York Times is essentially doing their own version of what we would call a shitpost, by virtue signaling to their base that we're not going to sign on to the Pentagon credentialing system, when Bill O'Reilly is screaming that Donald Trump now has 10x more power across the globe than he did 5 seconds ago, it's all craziness. And I think that it does make people who are living that way, who don't have a basis in reality, who don't have friends in real life, whose friends are all online and scrolled. If the only people you know are the people in this chat, you will find yourself completely susceptible to all of this propaganda work. That's what it's aimed at. It's aimed at mostly people that are younger than this audience. I only say that because I've looked at this audience. A very, very small percentage of it is under the age of 35. It's like under 10% of the audience is under the age of 35. So most people that will be hearing my voice or watching these programs will realize that this is a facet of reality, but it is not the totality of reality. And if we don't jealously defend that and also try to help our children have it, then you will end up just like that poor gal covered in tats, feeling like you are being batted around with your attention span like a ping pong ball. Here's Bill O'Reilly taking a swing, knocking it over to the right, I guess.
But here's the most important point for News Nation viewers tonight. You'll get this nowhere else. Donald Trump's power worldwide has just increased about 1,000%. But he's going to Korea to talk to Xi. Xi and the Chinese know that he has the Arab world and the Middle East on his side. China needs the Middle East, even though they're temporarily buying oil from Russia, okay, and Iran. They need the Middle East. They can't afford to alienate the Arab nations. All right. But Trump's going in with a big advantage, and he's looking at Xi and he's saying, listen, the whole world is now coalescing around the United States. NATO, EU, Middle East, you got to get on board. You got to stop all this stuff and become a partner with the USA for world peace and prosperity. That's what I did in May. That's
breaking exclusive. Breaking exclusive. This is exclusive to the News Nation audience, and they will now know it. No one else knows this information except me, Bill O'Reilly. World peace is at hand.
Okay, buddy. What? Isn't that silliness? Is it not silly? It's as silly as Donald Trump saying that we expect lasting harmony in the Middle East. How? These people don't necessarily share the same values as you. So how else are we going to actually see, like you're trying to sell them something like they think peace is a good thing. One of the reasons why I was successful about pushing back against the FBI, I've had this conversation with FBI whistleblowers before, like previous generations of whistleblowers, and they were like, you did something different than anyone else did. And I said, yeah, I redefined the terms of what success looks like. If Donald Trump were to say success looks like people are not killing each other every single day, then you can have total victory with that definition. But the problem is that Americans believe that peace means something else. Like, not only are we not going to kill each other, but it also means that we're going to embrace each other in friendship and harmony, that our feud is over. And I don't see that happening. What I did with the Bureau, what I did with the federal government, everybody who works in government wants to get their government job back. Do you guys realize that? That's just how it works. You get kicked out of something, you're like, I worked for 10 years to be in that position. And that's at least the case in my case. I joined the military in 2009. And in 2022, I finally lost the job forever that I had been working on since 2009. And it took me a year to get into the military. So 2008. So I had 14 years worth of history building up to that point when I finally said no. And what do most people do that have 14 years invested in something? They say, how do I maintain this? How do I take control and hold on to this? I've always been a little bit different, and some of you will have that same instinct where when something goes wrong, you immediately go, that's terrible. I'm very mad about this. And then you reassess and you go, but I'm not in control of it. Like I started off this morning. I don't have control. I will not pretend to have godlike power over the world. And so what do? I will continue existing and thriving in the situation that is now in front of me. I will adapt, as they teach you in the military, adapt, and I will overcome the burdens that are in front of me. Most people in federal government do not do that. There's a reason why the status quo continues to exist. There's a reason why the golden handcuffs, which is something I talked about literally in the first podcast I've ever done when I sat down with Dan Bongino. The golden handcuffs means after 10 years being pot committed to a retirement, people will do everything they can to make sure that they get to that retirement. And that might mean violating your civil liberties. It might mean doing all kinds of things that are illegal, immoral, or unethical. And they will continue on. And the justification is, I have a family. I have a mortgage. I have alimony. I have child support. I have obligations. I must do these things. And they do it over and over again, these people. The people who win don't do it because they stuck to their guns and they maintained this thing. They might have principles, but oftentimes what they do is they redefine what the terms of victory look like. That is a story for Christianity, by the way, if you go all the way back, because the Jews at the time were expecting what? A military hero, a conquering general to come in and throw the Romans off. And Jesus turned it on his head. It has been the fundamental defining characteristic of Western civilization that everything that man expected was actually turned on its head, because man can't understand what God understands. But we try. And for those of you that continue to try to live in a world where man can explain it and man can change things and man will make it right, you will be constantly disappointed like that poor woman was. You will be running from solution to solution to solution that you've created, and none of them will work. And the craziest thing in the world for everybody who's going through difficulty right now, and I have seen a lot of people go through difficulty. I have seen folks reach out to me and say, people who seemed fine, and in a one little moment, they let a little chink in the armor show through, and the light comes through of like the pain that's behind it, and they say, listen, I'm really struggling right now. I thought that we saved America in November of 2024. It was sold to me that everything is going to be made right because we put the right people in charge of this country. They did. A lot of you bought into it too. You thought, this is it. We did it. We won by voting our way out of this problem. And then here we are 9 months later, 10 months later, and people are going like, wait, I thought it was all fixed. Why is the government shut down? Why are my neighbors not getting a paycheck? How come friends of ours that live next door or in the military are not getting paid? What's going on? How is there still crisis? We fixed this. We solved it. And we didn't. We just pretended like you got sold a bill of goods. So we can continue to exist in a fallen world only if we accept that it's fallen and that we're not going to be able to save it. I see that in this story, which CNN is covering. Quite interesting, because it's something that always rings true to me. Every single time I hear someone from the Trump administration pop in and say, we nailed it. We did it. Look what we're doing. We're the most 2A friendly Department of Justice ever. And at the same time, in that same exact week, they arrested a man who lives in Washington, D.C. for owning a forced reset trigger, which should be 100% completely legal based on Supreme Court decisions, Cargill versus Garland, which was solved already. Mike Cargill was the guy who pushed the lawsuit about bump stocks. And the Supreme Court went out and put some language out there saying that rate of fire is not the same thing as saying that one trigger pull equals one. This is a machine gun case for those of you that are into the nuances of the National Firearms Act. It essentially defined, reaffirmed what a machine gun is and what it is not. And yet our Justice Department arrested a man in Washington, D.C. That's Jeanine Pirro. She's supposed to be one of the good guys. This is a lady who is working directly under Pam Bondi, whether you like it or not. That's the way it works. And I've got Harmeet Dillon in my feed all day long talking about, oh, we're so pro 2A. You arrested a guy for not having a machine gun and claimed it was a machine gun, even though the Supreme Court has ruled it's not a machine gun. Why are you gaslighting me? And all the people that I see in all my buddies that are like, yeah, he got peace in the Middle East. I thought we were going to have the IRS, abolished. Again, I didn't believe all these things, but the people who did are now suffering. You guys realize that when you listen to this, you're going to get a little dose of the uncomfortable reality. It's not dooming talk to say that Donald Trump promised to get rid of the IRS and to stop the income taxes. That was an actual thing that he said he wanted to do. That was a plan that was put out there. And that's why we have tariffs. And that's why I watched a $5,000 drop in one of my IRA accounts on Friday afternoon when we started talking about Chinese tariffs. But it reminds me that that was the promise. The promise is that we were going to do away with all of our income taxes because we were going to pay it the same way. The only way you do that is if you were to reduce the size of the government. And they have this brilliant opportunity right now where all non-essential jobs do not have to show up for work. And you could say they're not essential. Nobody notices them. Let's shut it all down. And are they doing it? No, no, they're not. They're not doing that. Why not? Why are they not doing that? Isn't that the way that you're supposed to operate? You're supposed to look out there and say, I promise something. God has given me an incredible opportunity right now. That opportunity is to eliminate the size of government in a way that has not been the case. And Democrats refuse to sign on to our plan. Outstanding. It is outstanding to be able to use that moment. And instead of using it, they're squandering it because they have not redefined what victory looks like. They are simply trying to say, we had a plan. We'd like to enact the plan. The plan is not working as we hoped it would because it never would because, of course, man cannot impose his will on the universe. It's really interesting to me to watch this go down. It would be such a good win. The only way that you can go back to the United States government being funded by tariffs, as Donald Trump said, is if the size of the United States government was drastically reduced. So small. It should only handle the critical functions. Military, some federal court system, some federal law enforcement, and a little bit of like the border end of things. Outside of that, what the hell are we paying for? We have more government agencies that none of you have ever heard of that you could read them off every single day, every single minute of every day for hours on end. And you would not get to the end of it. It's crazy how much government we have. And why do we need it? Because if you shut it down and all the non-essentials shut down like they are right now, none of you noticed. You just didn't. It's not there. I'm going to take a quick breather and have our Spotify ad right now. If you guys are listening on audio, you may hear an ad from Spotify. That's my heads up. If you're not listening on Spotify, check us out, KyleSerafinshow.com. That's the cheat code. It'll take you to the home of the show on Spotify where you can get audio and video. You can play it. You can even skip past those ads that I tell you about, by the way. You can fast forward right through them. It's fantastic. If you're watching somewhere else, make sure you like the video. I would appreciate that. Subscribe to the channels if you're on YouTube or if you're on Rumble. Great stuff there. For those of you watching on X is probably the worst place to watch us when it comes for like our value. And it also is like the hardest place to find the shows after the fact. They're not categorized in any meaningful way. So if you're watching on X, consider joining us on one of the other platforms. We'd appreciate all that. Okay. Again, shutdown stuff. Let's hit this one real quick. Kristi Noem says that Coast Guard members will get paid during the government shutdown. For those of you who are giving the Coast Guard a hard time about not being the military, I get it. They're one of these weird animals that can attach to military, but they otherwise fall under Department of Homeland Security. This picture is really telling for those of you that are not able to see it. This is Kristi Noem wearing like a utilities blue, kind of like massively unbuttoned shirt with a official seal of DHS on the sleeve, and she's got her name embroidered on it. She does the same thing that Patel does as far as like the cosplay thing. It's really, really nauseating. I dislike it in a big, big way. Only because like what these uniforms are, they're supposed to mean something, but she's found herself at the center of a stupid controversy. And the controversy is whether or not they will play her video. Should I just lead with the video and then we'll do the controversy part of it? I think that's the right thing to do. Okay, this is the video. It's about 60 seconds long. She can't get some airports to play this. And it tells us so much about what's going on, about whether or not we are going to deal with Antifa, whether we are not going to have the enforcement under ICE, and what we are seeing the other side. They are so reticent to accept any reasonable take because Donald Trump is on the other end of it, because they're all never Trumpers and whatever. Because of that, we're seeing this bizarre moment where people on the political left are straight up advertising and they are staking their honor for people that are non-citizens that have violated our law. So it is an interesting moment that they framed themselves in, but this is probably not the most perfect messenger. Here she is, not wearing a unbuttoned blue dress shirt. Here she is wearing a blazer of some kind with a deep scoop. For all of you that are saying that she's really hot, it really bothers me. Have you ever seen Kristi Noem up front? She has so much makeup on. Stay tuned for our palette cleanse because I got a little taste on that too. She just seems really, really cosmetically made up. They just look like they're trying so hard and they desperately want to be on camera somewhere. So here she is on camera.
Hi, I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. It is TSA's top priority to make sure that you have the most pleasant and efficient airport experience as possible while we keep you safe. However, Democrats in Congress refuse to fund the federal government, and because of this, many of our operations are impacted, and most of our TSA employees are working without pay. We will continue to do all that we can to avoid delays that will impact your travel. And our hope is that Democrats will soon recognize the importance of opening the government.
They made it partisan. That was it. That's the entirety of what caused this little scandal situation. Did you notice that she said things that I don't know where the constitutional mandate is for? We're talking about the federal government, right? We're talking about a government that's beholden to the Bill of Rights, including 9 and 10 and the amendments 9 and 10. What authority does the federal government have under the Constitution to make sure that your travel experience is safe and pleasant? Is there any? I don't know. Here's another. This is another DHS secretary, the previous one, who I had to listen to endlessly every single time that I would travel during the entirety of the Biden administration. I almost said the Obama administration. Same thing, right? Here's Mayorkas giving his message about how the southern border is all squared away, because they've always used that time as propaganda, and it was always really cringeworthy stuff. And this guy is the other end of the spectrum. She's a pretty lady. He's a hideous man. We have to look at these people and they like, why is your face out there? Why is it not just text with some voiceless narrator? Because all these people want to go out there and push their personal brand, it seems like. This is Mayorkas. You guys may remember him. He was not very great.
I am Alejandro Mayorkas, U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security. The United States continues to enforce its immigration laws. Individuals and families should not put their lives at risk by taking the dangerous journey only to be sent back. The restrictions at our southwest border have not changed. Single adults and families encountered will continue to be expelled where appropriate under Title 42. And those who are unable to establish a legal basis to remain will be removed. The U.S. Border Patrol already is managing numbers at historic levels due to large movements of people fleeing violence, corruption, poverty, climate change, and other hardships. And numbers could rise further from confusion over recent court orders and as smugglers continue to peddle misinformation to make a profit. We are prepared.
I don't think they were prepared. You know how I know that? Because whenever that guy got out of office and they put the new one in, suddenly people stopped coming in. Isn't that interesting? That the messaging that came out of the White House deliberately and instantaneously changed the flow of people coming into this country. So I don't believe anything he said. I think he was a complete liar. And I think we all agree that too. And yet, that was clearly political propaganda in just the same way that what Kristi Noem was saying was propaganda. And nobody cried about sharing that. That tells you about the inherent reticence to change, to accept that a new government is in and we're trying to get the policy. This is why it's not successful. So the answer is not, well, we just need to try harder. We just need to push our policy and our agenda harder. No, the answer is there needs to be less of it. You need to take that tool away from the enemy because it obviously works fine with the enemy. The enemy are people that want more government if you're a conservative. They got no problem bowing and immediately playing the stuff from Alejandro Mayorkas, but they're going to cry about Kristi Noem saying things like the Democrats are responsible for the government shutdown. Again, it's a lost opportunity to say, yeah, we own the government shutdown. And by the way, the government sucks. And that's why we're shutting down more of it. We're going to shut down as much of it as we can. We're only going to have essential functions. And then we're going to fund it with tariffs. Oh, wait, that's what he actually promised. Here's Sean Duffy. He's one of my favorite people in the cabinet. There's a couple of them that I like a lot. I like Duffy. I like Wright at Energy, right? I've enjoyed what Pete Hegseth does. It seemed like a totally reasonable thing to say that you can't just wander around the Pentagon as someone who has wandered around the Pentagon. These all make sense. Here he is. He's over on Fox Business talking about, like, Why are we even having this problem right now?
The No Kings protest, Maria, really frustrating. I mean, this is part of Antifa, paid protesters. It begs the question, who's funding it? But yeah, Democrats want to wait for a big rally of a No Kings protest, when the bottom line is, who's running the show in the Senate? Chuck Schumer's not running the show. The No Kings protesters or organizers are running the show. Is AOC threatening a primary against Chuck Schumer? Is she running the show? But you need a strong leader in the Senate to take control and make decisions. And Chuck Schumer's blown in the breeze. He has no power, no authority, because he's given it up to his primary opponent, potentially in AOC, or to the No Kings protester organizers, and it's shameful.
Okay. What's wild is that he actually is shirking the ability for them to say, you know what? We have the Senate. We've got J.D. Vance. He's the president of the Senate. We've got John Thune. He's the majority leader. Yeah, we're just not going to call any votes because we're not going to go and make peace with people that don't want to be honest. He's bringing up other important things, the No Kings rally and this sort of like resistance movement, which is really wild. I've got something from Joe Walsh, which is kind of funny. I guess he was a Tea Party guy originally. Anybody that gets 100% behind like a cause, they drive me a little bit nuts. It doesn't matter if you're Bill O'Reilly and Donald Trump now has 1,000% more influence in the world. That's BS. I know that's true. Like, that's totally BS. And if you go like, Donald Trump is the worst person ever, and this is the most incredible moment because a bunch of people are going to go out. Like, I promise you this. I'm going to go to the No Kings rally. I got cameras to go cover it. I got a couple of like GoPro style cameras. We'll go down and I'll walk around. I'll go walk around and be around the dumbest people in Austin, Texas. And I'll show it to you guys. It'll be over on our locals, and we'll probably put it on YouTube as well. I'll show you what it looks like. It's going to be people who are not making sensible arguments. It's also illogical. So either one of these sides are going to be actually really dumb. In the middle of the road is like, hey, we made some campaign promises. We're going to try to keep it up. What if J.D. Vance came out? He seems like he's fairly dialed into what the agenda looks like. Wouldn't it be great if he just came out and was like, yeah, we're not going to call a meeting of the Senate right now to vote on anything stupid because what we really want to see is less. We want to see less government, and we're going to own that. Yeah, this is what we promised. So here's what we're about. Here's a man who has lost the thread, I think. This is Joe Walsh. He seems very, very upset about something. I don't know how you can believe in small government at the same time you're also going to cheer on the Antifa types. And I'm going to tell you why I think the Antifa types are completely nuts as well. Here's Walsh. Here's a little take on this. He has a No Kings banner on the top of his podcast here. So check this out.
Something amazing and unprecedented is going to happen in this country, the United States of America, this upcoming Saturday, October 18th. This upcoming Saturday, October 18th, will be the largest peacetime protest in American history. Think about that for a minute. This upcoming Saturday, October 18th, millions and millions and millions and
I lost track of being interested. For those of you who were just listening, you guys didn't see this, but Joe Walsh is sitting in a room where he's got a dog bed behind him over his right shoulder, and he's got his actual bed over his left shoulder, I think, unless he's in like a hotel there. Is that his home? Does he do a podcast with his bed in view? Is he getting ready to do an OnlyFans? My wife told me that I am not allowed to ever have a bed on camera with me, and that is a good rule in general. Do not have a bed in the background because it insinuates that at some moment you might be bringing people to your bed on camera. Why is your camera there where your bed is? Dude. Also, this is the most historic event in American history. This kind of hyperbole. It's 1,000% more interesting. He's so much more powerful. America's going to do something it's never done. Shut up. This is all crap. These people are going to have a bunch of dummies show up, say some dumb things, 100% ridiculous claim that Donald Trump is somehow a king. If he was a king, he would do the things he said he would do, and he would just stop the IRS, and he would shut down all this garbage, wouldn't he? He would actually do what he said, and he wouldn't have anyone get in the way. Kings kill people that decide to resist the throne, the crown. Pretty sure people don't understand that on the left. I'm showing you here something from the National Lawyers Guild because they put this out. They want people to understand. From Gaza to Atlanta. I don't know what the hell that means. From Gaza to Atlanta, the National Lawyers Guild and its members are working in solidarity with protest movements to end genocide. radicalized violence, and the repression of activists. Please read and view and share. This is my favorite. They have another little bit here saying that if you experience government tyranny, then make sure you reach out to their group. Seriously, this group. They are also letting you know that they are anti-fascist and unafraid. Why am I bringing up the National Lawyers Guild? Why would I do that? Because there's this new move on the right coming out of the Trump administration that somehow claims that they are going after Antifa. And to me, it's the same thing as Harmeet Dillon claiming that the DOJ is the most 2A friendly thing that's ever existed. Do you know how dumb it is to hear Glenn Beck say this? And for people who are out in Portland in the last month or so, claiming that they are now seeing the FBI get real serious about Antifa. I'm going to debunk that in 1 second here for you guys. But first, let's play Glenn Beck talking about how we know that this is not theatrical and cosplay. This is real serious stuff. It's just as serious as Kristi Noem telling you that Democrats are the problem when you go to the airport and their job is to give you safety and a pleasant journey.
Last week, I did a TV show that apparently got the FBI's attention. The topic was initial investigation, a jumping off point, shattering the myth that Antifa just, it's just leaderless and decentralized. We thought, no, it's really not. So we dove in headfirst and we analyzed the Antifa network, and we went from the street thugs to the support groups, eventually to the funding. Okay. To say the FBI was interested in this might be an understatement. Let's just say the FBI is turning over every single stone. It is so clear to me that they are exploring all angles of this, and they are talking to anyone and everyone that can give them any kind of information. How do I know? Saturday, I get a phone call. The director would like to send over some agents to speak to you, Glenn. And I'm like, the FBI agents?
Wait, Director Kash Patel? The doofus that was on my podcast a whole bunch of times? That director? The one that is wants to be my friend so desperately so he can get some positive information out? That FBI director? He's going to send FBI agents to my house? Glenn, drop it. It's embarrassing for everybody. If the FBI is going to Glenn Beck to kickstart their investigation into Antifa, we are screwed. How do you know, Cole? Let me tell you, because they already did it. They already did this work. They don't need Glenn Beck and his non-subpoena power investigation into the financial origins of Antifa to be able to pull this crap out. That is called theater. Going and making a call to Nick Sorter, who rescued a flag on the streets of Portland, is not how investigations are done. But it is how Kash Patel operates, because we are run by unserious people. This is an exclusive story coming in. Exclusive, I'll put that in air quotes, but that's what they call it. Exclusive coming from Post Millennial. And you know what? Post Millennial does really good coverage of Antifa, and they've been doing it for 5+ years. That's how I know that they're serious about it, because they did it before it was really cool. This is a story that's written by, what is her name? Katie Davisport? Or is it Daviscourt? She said federal law enforcement officers have arrested multiple individuals outside of a federal building in Eugene, Oregon on Tuesday night during an anti-ICE direct action is what the Antifa people call it, organized by the Antifa networks. Sources told the Post Millennial that the arrests were made for property damage and attempted assault. The demonstration drew dozens of black-clad militants to the area where protesters engaged in unlawful activity and obstructed access to a federal building on Pearl Street, prompting intervention from federal agents. Identities of those being detained has not been released. No injuries were reported. Okay, I get it. I'm aware of how these things work, and so are you, some of you. Do you know what's crazy? I know for a fact that FBI Portland already has really well done investigations with significant amounts of information from 2020. And I know, and I went public with that and told that story in 2023 to the Post Millennial, which you guys can find, and the headline is on the screen. Former FBI agent who was in Portland during 2020 riots reveals that legal observers worked with violent Antifa mobs. Have we gone after the National Lawyers Guild, who were in fact on radios calling other members of the Antifa factions that were on the street in Portland and making them respond with the threat of violence to federal agents, which are federal crimes. Did they do that? Have they gone and turned over all of these cases that were out there, including the subjects that my team was involved in surveilling and reporting back? They have interviews while these people were in custody. They have surveillance reports. They have radio traffic that was captured. The FBI office in Portland was capturing the FRS radio transmissions between National Lawyers Guild wearing, hat wearing and T-shirt wearing people acting as spotters on behalf of the direct action crews that have been arrested recently. Same types of people. Now, are they 100% the same people? I don't know, but I bet you the FBI did. I bet you there's files on all of it. And I'm not saying this like Candace Owens, like I know. No. I mean, I know because I talked to the case agents. They did this work. This has already been done. So you don't need to go talk to Glenn Beck about the funding networks. Give me a freaking break. They have financial analysts that do this kind of stuff. They have forensic accountants who do this work. And they had every reason to go do it. What they didn't have was a United States attorney in Oregon that would bring these cases. And since they did not, why not today? Why not now? Why not go after them when you have all the groundwork done? The FBI knew how these people were organized, and the fact that they're not running RICO cases against Antifa right now is absurd. Forget the terrorist piece. Get them under RICO. They clearly act in a certain way. And all of that evidence has been already gathered for years at this point. The 100 Days of Riots was completely infiltrated by the FBI's fly team. There were people that were working in undercover capacities for long term, sleeping on the ground with these idiots, and they have all of the goods. So why are those prosecutions not going forward? You could dismantle this right now, or you could send people out to Glenn Beck and keep doing the theater. And that's what drives me nuts. That's why we get batted around like a ping pong ball. That's why we feel like that poor girl with the tattoos who feel like nothing is real and everything is going to be a win and everything's going to be a loss and it just keeps happening back and forth and like what's real and what's not? Why do I feel so anxious and why does it seem like there's chaos? There's chaos because the people who have the ability to stop the chaos do not, because the chaos seems to serve the things that they want. We can talk about a government shutdown because there's a crisis and now we can go out there and demonize our opponents. We can talk about how we can't get into the Pentagon anymore and we can't do things that are totally common sense, so now we have an enemy. We can talk about how there's a ceasefire, even though pretty soon there won't be a ceasefire. And so when they're fighting again, then we'll have something to fight about again. It doesn't really make a difference what side you get on. You sit out there and you realize that this stuff is all theatrical. And all it's doing is making all of us more anxious and more susceptible to thinking that we're in a chaotic scenario where we might actually react negatively towards one of our neighbors who's just a regular person. When I was feeling crazy before the November election of last year, I kept telling you the closest and the most important thing you can do, the most conservative thing you can do, is go out and make friends with your neighbors, even if you don't agree with them, and make sure that they know that you're a person and you know that they're a person. And that continues to be the case, because the minute you turn off all of this stuff, I got friends that don't know anything about what's going on in the news, and they are no worse than you are. In fact, some of our happiest moments are when we're the most ignorant of all these ongoing things. I've had people in the gun tube world tell me they wish they didn't have to talk politics because they just like talking about guns. I kind of feel the same way about a lot of things. There's a lot more interesting things out there than what goes on in politics. The danger is that this political environment could actually come through your door and could end your life. And that's a real possibility for me and some of the guys that I'm friends with, and it may be the real possibility for you. And maybe that's why you guys are tuned into this, and I get it. I really do. So we want to be informed, but we don't want to be just obsessed with what goes on in this world. And that's a hard balance, because you'll end up like that poor girl trying to solve problems that are so much bigger than you when the answer is always out there and it's always not you, it turns out. I got this last little clip from this guy. This is how I know we've left reality and we are now living in an alternate version of it, where you've got sensible, reasonable, articulate, educated human beings going out and making the argument that law-abiding American citizens are terrified of our federal government's anti-immigration, or whatever they're calling them, the anti-illegal immigration forces that are doing deportations. The same people that lost their garbage minds in 2020 over George Floyd are the same people that are screaming about the deportation of people who have broken our immigration laws. Like somehow those things are related. Those people are interested in chaos. And when you get regular, smart, otherwise like dad type dudes to go out there and buy into it, when you get Joe Walsh to crack and put his bed on camera for some reason and say that the most patriotic, amazing thing is ever going to happen, we're going to have a bunch of crazy people in the streets. Like that stuff means that there are a lot of people that need to, it's not touch grass, people. It's like reconnect with the real timeline and step away from this internet fake reality they've been buying. This guy saying this stuff actually is kind of chilling to me more than others because he sounds so sensible. And these are the voices that I think are the scariest ones when they get on this side.
Hi, I'm Jeff Cohen, the economist running for Congress in the Illinois 9th District. Economists like to talk about trade-offs, and a huge one in my mind is about safety. I coached my 3 kids' soccer games on these fields in James Park in Evanston, and on the weekends these fields are swarming with families. But yesterday they were just as empty as they are now because hundreds of absolutely legal American citizens did not feel safe in the vicinity of masked, unidentified ICE agents prowling Home Depot's parking lot across the street. I mean, I remember we'd have to cancel games because of rain or lightning or even snow, but not because we felt unsafe because of our own government. I mean, I've been to that store plenty of times, and I can't say I've ever seen the need, according to DHS, to, quote, deploy additional resources to apprehend rioters and Antifa members engaged in domestic terrorism. I mean, it's backwards. No American wants state-sponsored domestic terrorism. Across the street, that violates Fourth Amendment rights, and over here on the kids' soccer fields, that's not the safety trade-off I think America bargained for.
No, I don't care about safety. That's not what my government is supposed to provide. It's supposed to like ensure liberty, and liberty means that you are able to be free. Okay? Those people are not unmarked federal troops for whatever it's worth. You can call them what you want, but this is outside of that federal building. This is what Katie Davenport or Davisport or Court. I can't get her name right, poor thing. Look, these people are pretty clearly marked. There's no Fourth Amendment violation for having a bunch of federal agents gather in a parking lot before they go and do some sort of targeted, enforcement action. But for a generally reasonable sounding man, which that guy was, for that to be the case, where you're going to go, oh, that guy, he's kind of like me. He's got kids. He coaches soccer. He's wearing a hoodie. He speaks articulately. He's clean cut. Why is he making these arguments that somehow we agreed to a trade-off, and the trade-off involves that we're going to get safety? I didn't agree to any of that. And actually, for most of history, Americans didn't agree about safety. I got to put the chat up for a second. Give me safety or give me death, says Kaiser. That's right. It's nowhere in our history. Give me safety or death. Liberty means that you're going to assume some danger, folks. And there's ways you can mitigate that. Generally, what you do is you protect your soul and then assume that your earthly body is not going to be the thing that you're trying to live for the optimization of. If you did that, you wouldn't end up like that poor gal that we saw in the earliest clip today. I'm so fixated on that. I cannot get over how many people are feeling that level of chaos and panic in their life, and how the solution, it's really difficult, but it's also simple. It's hard to do, but it's not outside of the reach. I hope she finds a church she can go in and find a moment of peace. Go in there and just kneel before the cross. I don't try to do like a lot of preaching to people, but at the end of the day, if you want to find when you are completely overwhelmed and you cannot solve the problem, it turns out that the solution is almost always surrender. And I say that as someone who's faced down the federal government, going after my emails, investigating me criminally for something I didn't do anything wrong. I've said, as a guy who lost his home, who had a pregnant wife and nowhere to live and nowhere to have a baby, I'll stack my experiences up as on the same table as of high difficulty that as many people have faced. It's really scary to go up against a big enemy. It turns out that you can't do that by yourself. And if you try, you'll find yourself unsuccessful. So I've got a fun palate cleanse, which will remind us about how vapid and silly this world is. And hopefully you guys can have a little bit of a laugh on that. Before we do, I'll go ahead and play this up here. Support our channel wherever you guys are, wherever you're watching. If you're watching right now, then you should be liking the videos, especially on Rumble, so that boosts us up on the leaderboard. If you do it on YouTube, it helps our engagement. If you do it on X, I don't know what it does, but why not do it on X? You can join us over on locals at kyleseraphin.com if you guys want to read all the articles. Anything that I've referenced today, you guys can read it in totality, and you can be part of our community, free or paid. Take your pick. I don't really mind. I appreciate all of you guys that have voluntarily been part of our community and doing this jam with us. For all of you that have been in the chat in this morning, the show is for you. Thank you for your patience this morning as we got started when it didn't work. And I bring this to you as something to smile about. Reject some of the stupidity of the world. This guy gets it. It's a really short clip, but it makes a lot of sense to me. Many of you are in the same category as this man at the end here. Check it out.
Emma, how old are you?
22.
How many units of Botox do you have?
32.
Lauren, how old are you?
24.
And how many units of Botox do you have?
I have 104. I have 40 in my masseters and 64 in my face.
And Darren, how old are you?
38 years old.
And how many units do you have?
None. No, I've been using the same towel to dry my crotch and my face for the last 17 years. So that's my secret.
I'm 43 years old. I use the same towel for my face and my crotch too. But you guys probably don't realize this. Once you hang it up on the wall overnight, as long as there's a 12-hour lapse between the time that you used it, all of the previous history of the towel is always erased. And that's why this works. That's the science behind this. Some of you don't know that. If you're out there getting your face injected full of craziness and Botox and whatever else, if you're out there applying all kinds of things to pretend that you're somebody that you're not, take a deep breath maybe and consider. You don't need to do that. You don't need to. If you're definitely in your 20s and you're getting Botox or surgeries or you're getting all this insanity, take a deep breath maybe. Just wipe your face with the ass towel and move on. I need a laugh. All right. I appreciate all of you. I will see you again later on. If you guys want to, if you stay on Rumble, you will probably get to see the American Radicals podcast because Steve Friend hasn't been paid and he's not going back to work. So he's going to do a podcast. God bless all of you. Thanks for your patience. And we'll see you again in the morning tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.